welcome, Morgan, to the podcast. Um, is there anything, you would like to say before we get started?
Yeah, my name is Morgan Price. I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator at the Saskatoon Sexual Assault and Information Center. I'm a registered social worker, and I've been working at the center for 8 years now. I started there as a counselor in 2018 and have since moved into this education role and been there since 2020.
Oh, that's sweet. That's pretty nice. Okay, so to start off, for like the viewers who don't really know what sexual, health is, do you think you can try explain that to them?
Sure. So sexual health sort of encompasses all of the facets of ourselves that allow us to engage in healthy sexual practices or have a healthy sexual experience in life. So that isn't limited just to having sex. There's
Yeah.
so many pieces that are bigger than that. Sexual violence being obviously a big piece that I'm familiar with, but also healthy relationships, intimacy, being comfortable with your sexual relationship with yourself, not always with other people. There's so many pieces that, we could branch off into. So
It's such a broad topic, like how can people come forward and talk about, how to get help from stuff like that, especially like protection and like safe stuff.
that's a great question. It's really hard in this current sort of climate that we are in politically. It's hard to talk about sexual health
Yeah.
and sexual violence in a way, especially for youth,
Mm-hmm.
that feels like it's accurate information and you're not just Googling stuff online
Yeah.
and trying to figure out what's real and what's not and knowing who you can go to.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the Sexual Assault Center provides a ton of education about some of the things that I just said. So healthy relationships, what violence is, what abuse is, how to identify it, how to get out of it,
Mm-hmm.
how to find help, who you can go to. We give lots of education to youth.
Yeah.
So we try to equip everybody with skills so that they know where to go and what they can do.
So you have a 24/7 crisis line.
Yeah.
And you offer counseling, including group sessions. And do these services like work? And how can someone reach out if they do need that support?
Yeah. So kind of the majority of the work that we do is counseling related. So whether it's individual counseling, the group sessions, like you said, or the crisis line, all of our services are free, first of all. So no one has to pay anything to come for any of them, which is rare for counseling. Counseling's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Can be. And so anyone who has experienced any sort of sexual violence, so whether that was something that happened a long time ago or yesterday or any level of severity, they're able to come to our center and receive support. It's super easy. They can just give us a call or walk into our center. It's downtown in Saskatoon, or email us to sort of engage. And all you do is book an appointment and you get to see a counselor for free as soon as the next counselor is available. So typically it's about 3 weeks of a wait. The 24/7 crisis line, though, you can call it any hour of the day, obviously, as it sort of is in the name. And a trained professional always answers that line and is able to support anyone who's maybe experiencing like a flashback or a nightmare or a trigger or something scary is going on at the moment, and then someone can be on the phone with them at that time. And no one on the crisis line is able to like physically go to the person that needs the support, but they would have the people ready on the phone of who to call that could go to support somebody if they were in immediate danger.
Yeah.
So kind of on the note of like how you said, like any severity or like any situation or any time, like a lot of people I feel like are afraid to like get help in general, but also like maybe talk to the police or to get like a higher level of like security there. So I know that you guys help people like filing police reports and going through all that. Like what should somebody know about going through that process? And like I know that it can be kind of scary for people, so like how do you handle that kind of thing?
Absolutely, good question. Our center takes a very survivor-centered approach in the sense that we don't believe that survivors have to report at all if they don't want to. Reporting is a very personal process. It's a very onerous process, meaning that it's a long commitment, potentially. It's not easy to walk into a police station and tell a police officer about the worst thing that's ever happened to somebody or the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And so we would never force or even really encourage a client of ours to go report unless it was something they really felt they needed for their own healing. And if that's the case, then we try and provide as much information about that process that we can to help a survivor feel informed about what they're kind of entering into by reporting to police. So SSAIC works very closely with the Saskatoon Police Service. We have a good relationship with them. And so we try to do our best to minimize any sort of re-traumatization or harm that a survivor might be at risk at experiencing by reporting what happened to them. Some things, I guess, just quickly to know about reporting is that A, like I said, you don't have to, and B, in Canada, there's no statute of limitations on reporting a sexual assault. So what that means is that you never run out of time. You can report something that happened yesterday. You can report something that happened 70 years ago. There's no timeline. And in other countries, like the United States, for example, they have a timeline. I think it's about 10 years. Canada, they don't have that. So it provides a bit of freedom for the survivor to get to choose when it feels right for them to go report. Understandably so, the longer that you wait, the more difficult it is to investigate and prosecute because there's less evidence available. And in sexual assault cases, in general, there's not a lot of evidence as it is. One of the biggest pieces about reporting that's sort of misunderstood is that the police have to investigate as to whether consent was present or not. Not whether sexual contact happened or not. And consent is really hard to prove or disprove on anything other than the word of the person who experienced that. So it's just a very challenging crime to investigate, and it's a very challenging experience to report and talk about. So we don't ever want survivors to go into it without being prepared that it could be a hard experience, and so that's our role that we take.
I know that for a lot of people, like, obviously going to the police or even just like telling somebody is really scary about it. And I know that sometimes there's a lot of like almost like guilt or like stuff that you put on yourself because it's like, what if it's not like not enough to report, or what if people don't believe me, or what if I can't prove it, right? And so I know that's really challenging. So I think a lot of what you guys do with like your like education and like helping people go through that process is really good as well.
Thank you. Yeah, the not being believed bit is a big fear for a lot of survivors. And unfortunately, in the legal system, their job isn't to make a survivor feel like they're believed, right? But in the emotional side of the work that like we do at the center, that is part of our role, is to make sure that survivors know that they're believed and that they're important and that they have support no matter what happened to them. Yeah.
Because I know that sometimes it's like, I don't know how to explain it properly. It's just like you feel like what you're doing might not be important,
Like
or it might not, it might like did this actually happen? Like, is
Right.
this what you would consider?
Yeah. So what you're talking about is all related and rooted to something we call rape culture.
Yeah.
So we sort of exist in our current 2025 world, our modern world, in a world where, in a society where sexualized violence is normalized and expected, which is kind of gross and sad. And that shows up in all of our systems, like in our legal system, in our medical system, in our education system. But it also shows up in the way that in like our media. So like we watch survivors who experience sexualized violence in movies, in TV shows, speak poorly about themselves. We watch other people speak poorly about them. We look at media reports, like news reports, and how they talk about survivors in all of the things that survivors should have done to prevent what happened to them. Putting all of this blame on the victim of a crime. And no other crime is like that. Sexual violence is the only crime. If I get robbed, no one's like, oh my gosh, she should have not worn her wedding ring around. Yeah. You know what I mean? But if I got sexually assaulted, somebody would be like, well, what did she do to prevent that from happening? And it's a unique crime in that sense. And so when society is constantly telling survivors, what did you do wrong? You're to blame. Did you say no loudly enough? Did you tell them to go away? Did you say you didn't want it? Yada, 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 yada. Those messages get in our own heads and we start asking our own selves those questions. Yeah. Therefore, talking ourselves out of the severity of what happened to us, or thinking that because we have a role to play in that, then the violence that happened to us is less important, which is obviously not the case at all. We can talk ourselves out of it. Yeah. It happens to like 99.9% of survivors, I think. Every survivor I've ever talked to has feelings like that.
Yeah, so I feel that, you know, for like all the survivors too that are like out there, you know, not to be scared to lead that next step into seeking justice, because there's some pretty freaky people out there, and I feel like there should be more people wanting to come forward with it, because it's not normal. No. And it's really gross, and
it's so gross.
I feel that too, that nobody should have to walk out and be scared of, like, you know, other people, because you don't know what they're capable of and who they are.
Totally. Another piece of rape culture that you just made me think of, that sort of proves that sexualized violence is normalized and expected, is that as a society we are more uncomfortable with holding a perpetrator accountable and calling out that behavior than we are with blaming a survivor. We're more comfortable to just blame the survivor, and that's a problem. Yeah.
It's also unfortunate for like the justice system sometimes too, because sometimes it seems like they'll try brush it under and then try move past it.
Yeah.
But I don't know, people are you're just left there with all these feelings, and then somebody's just there and they don't even know what to do after that. They don't know how to move forward.
Totally. And that's why we hope that survivors can find our center.
Yeah.
And know that there are people that will believe them and will support them and try and help them figure out, because for every survivor it's going to be different. What does moving forward look like? What does justice look like? What does healing look like?
Something that I heard that was kind of helped me a little bit was like that it wasn't, someone said it's not your shame to feel, or it's like, it's not, you didn't like ask for that. And it's like, if someone put you in an uncomfortable situation, or maybe led you in a certain way, like when you didn't ask for it at all, or like you didn't ask to be put in that situation, like it's totally not your shame to feel, or totally not your position to be in, like to feel bad at all. It's on them. But like you said, it's just so much easier to put it on the survivor. And
totally.
Yeah.
But that's beautiful. That's exactly what we tell survivors all the time. But it's saying that is one thing, and then believing that is the next like piece. And that's why counseling is helpful, and having supportive people in your life that continue to retell you that message over and over again is important.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just want to go in a little bit with SSAIC. So what kind of topics were covered in those programs again?
Which program, sorry?
SSAIC.
At the Sexual Assault Center?
Yes.
Okay, so our programming, So counseling, like I said, is kind of our major sort of branch of our work that we do, including group therapy. And then the other side, which is sort of my side of the agency, is the education side. So we have a few programs that we run throughout the year that are what we call static programs. So we run them every year. We run them in a season, kind of. Two of them are aimed at youth. So we have I'm the Boss of Me, which is aimed at kind of a grade 4 level. It's a puppet show about you being the boss of your own body, and what sexual abuse is, and that it's wrong, and that it's never your fault. And we try and teach kids this as soon as we possibly can, because kids are inherently vulnerable. So it's important that they know what is and isn't okay.
Yeah.
And then we have a grade 8 level program as well called No is a Full Sentence. So similar topics, just no puppet show, because grade 8s don't find puppets cute anymore. Yeah. And we talk about healthy relationships and emotional maturity and boundaries and sexual violence and support systems and those kinds of things that all support, like you said in your first question, Tori, like what does sexual health mean? What does healthy sexual health look like? So our programs aim to support that in a full kind of way. And then we have a few programs that are aimed at adult audiences. So we have one program called Supporting Survivors of Sexual Violence Training, what we call SST. And that's just good for anybody who might work with survivors. So like nurses, social workers, other nonprofit organization staff, just to kind of give them some more skills to support a survivor if they were to get a disclosure.
Yeah.
And then we just give a ton of general presentations on any topic relating to sexual violence. So consent, or caring for survivors in a medical setting, or how to teach about sexual assault, or we have one on being a good ally. So if you aren't a survivor yourself, but you want to know how to support survivors better in your daily life, what does that look like? So we really just we can give a presentation on anything to anybody in the world of sexual violence. And that's kind of my role that I take on at the agency.
It's really nice though, knowing that there's people out there who are still willing to hear about your story and want to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also really nice to know that this business, expands with different varieties of what you need help with.
Yeah.
And I really encourage a lot of people to check that out, because I feel like it would really help.
Thank you.
I feel like I would pretty much look into that too.
Well, maybe you'll come work at SSAIC one day.
Yeah,
who knows?
Maybe. That'd be pretty cool.
It's a good place.
Good place. So I really want to get into the topic also of communication and consent.
Mm-hmm.
So
Love
how
consent.
important is communication in asexual relationships?
Oh my God. It's everything.
Yeah.
It's everything. It's the difference between a consensual and a non-consensual sexual encounter.
Mm-hmm.
If there is no communication, verbal or nonverbal, how are you supposed to know whether someone wants to be there or not? Guess?
Yeah.
Like, that's not an effective way to determine that someone's happy in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of this weird societal norm that talking about sex before you have sex is like weird, or that it's going to like turn off the mood, or it's going to make it not sexy. And I would argue that the opposite is actually true. Like if you ask if you want to kiss me first, that's really nice actually, and that makes me want to kiss you more. If you ask if I'm comfortable with such and such a thing, that makes me more comfortable, instead of just doing it and then me have to be like, I'm actually not comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But it's uncomfortable to say that you're uncomfortable with something. It's more comfortable to say off the top what you are and aren't comfortable doing.
What roles does consent play in sexual health, and why is it essential to discuss it properly? I know, especially with younger generations, I feel like they don't do the whole consent thing a whole lot. I feel like it's not talked about a little too much anymore. And
I don't think it ever was.
Yeah, so I feel
know.
like that really needs to come to light and be spoken about.
Yes, I totally agree with you. So much sexual assault from peer to peer. So let's think about like two high school students, for example. They're both youth still. We're not talking about like an adult to a child. That's a different situation. But if we're looking at like two grade 9 students, two grade 10 students, so much sexual violence that happens in that sort of window is honestly accidental. It doesn't mean that it doesn't cause harm, because it does. But by and large, most of the teens that are perpetrating sexual assault aren't doing it on purpose. They're not trying to be malicious. They're not trying to be harmful. We just don't know any better to talk about sex or consent or communicate before we do it. So all we're learning is from movies and TVs and porn.
Yeah.
On how to do healthy sexuality, or sexy sex, I guess. And a lot of times that ends up being situations that aren't safe for people. And again, like I said, the harm is still real, but it wasn't intentional. And so by talking about how to talk about consent and teaching kids how to talk about consent before they start having sex, we will directly lower the rate of sexual violence, particularly in that early adulthood, young youth window. there are always going to be people, and I hate to say this, but I do think it's true, that will choose to use sex as a tool for violence, which is why I call it sexual violence. And that's a different like subset of people. They have other issues and problems that they need to work out. But the people that never wanted to cause harm in the first place, they probably could have been helped and supported better with some more education, like you just said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did want to just go back to like people, like the younger audience,
Yeah.
discovering things on the internet too.
Scary place.
And yeah, since it's such an open website.
Yeah.
And I feel that since kids have access to that, they're able to find a bunch of different things, which is kind of what you're kind of saying, you know, it kind of tolls with your head.
Yeah.
And you don't really know what's good and what's bad.
Right.
And then especially if you are dealing with a younger, like a child on child also, that it's like it's hard. I feel like that feeling comes back knowing that, you know, this person hurt me, but like what if somebody hurt them for them to earn that, like learn that actions.
Yeah. Which does happen.
Yeah.
For most perpetrators of sexual violence, they've also been victimized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how can somebody, like, you just have to talk about it, hey? Like, how can you prevent such, like, say another survivor into changing into something that we don't want?
Yeah,
I know
that's hard.
I know it's such a, like, it's so up there.
Yeah.
And there's like so many questions that I know a bunch of us want to ask and we don't have the answers to.
Right.
Personally, for me, that's mine. I just don't understand how somebody would want to hurt somebody else knowing what they've been through.
Right. And in the same way that they've been hurt.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know that one always racks my brain too. And for those of us that will never do that, we're not going to understand.
Yeah.
It's not going to make sense. I don't know why people choose to hurt other people, period. But in the same ways that they've been hurt is just so bizarre.
Yeah.
To me. It's that cycle of abuse, right? And how do we break that? We have fewer and fewer people being abused over time. And the fewer that we have being abused, the fewer can turn around and reperpetrate. So it's a slow societal, like culture-wide healing process is what it is. There's no quick answer. It's not just education, but that's a piece of it. It's not just fixing the legal system, but it's a piece of it. It's all these pieces coming together. It's not, telling people that they should talk about consent, but that's a piece of it.
Yeah.
It's all these little pieces that come together, and then it'll just take time, really, which is not always an uplifting answer, but it is kind of what it is.
Yeah. This episode is sponsored by SEIU West, improving the lives of working people and their families. Brought to you by Hard Knocks Talks, Saskatoon's addiction podcast, in partnership with Camponi Housing. To learn more about today's sponsors, find links in the show notes below. This next topic we're gonna talk about, though, is like the sexual health in relationships.
Sure.
And what are some common challenges couples face when it comes to maintaining sexual health?
That's a good question. I think you kind of touched on the biggest one already, which is just communicating.
Yeah.
There's no class in high school or anywhere that teaches you how to communicate in relationships, sexual or otherwise. Doesn't matter, any kind of relationship. We're all in relationships with people all the time. We have friends, we have family, we have partners, we have siblings. And we have to communicate with all of them. And there's no class on that. So where do we learn how to communicate? We learn it through social media and through movies and TVs and examples and people around us and through culture and society. And if those examples that we have provided for us individually are not healthy examples, then we're going to learn how to do that unhealthy behavior. So the relationships that you have in your life that might inform your decisions and your styles of communication might be different than mine. And then if we meet up, what if our styles of communication are different and don't align? So it's a big challenge.
Yeah. So how do things like long distance relationships or busy schedules affect sexual health, and how can couples navigate these challenges? How can they also support one another in such a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
And so a piece of communication that I haven't even touched on yet is all the nonverbal things,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, for example, my husband and I communicate on the daily about our home life just by simply doing small things. So
Mm-hmm.
I make his lunch for him. That's a style of communication. He does the dishes when he gets home before I get home. That's a bit of communication. And all of that informs the healthiness of our relationship, which informs our sexual health. If you aren't physically together, then that physical nonverbal side of communication isn't there. You're solely based on verbal communication via technology. And doing anything through technology is one step removed from connecting, right? Intimacy and sexual health is so based around connection. And it's not to say that you can't connect with people virtually. You absolutely can. I mean, we're doing a podcast right now. That's virtual. People are probably connecting with this. And FaceTime is a real thing, and that's helpful, and texting and calls and all those things. But it's really extra hard and takes extra effort and work when you're not physically together. So long distance relationships are a great example of that, just being really challenging. And there also has to be a lot of trust. I don't think you can have a healthy sexual relationship without there being trust, both of your partner and then your partner of you. And not just around cheating, although that is a huge piece of it, obviously, but trust that you're gonna pick up the phone when I call, or trust that you're gonna answer my text before you go to bed and like put in that effort. Trust that you're gonna, behave yourself appropriately when you're out and about in your city and I'm out and about in my city, and whatever. And appropriate just being unique to every relationship.
Just like respecting
Exactly.
your guys' relationships.
Yes.
And to me, it kind of sounds like doing the bare minimum.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it shouldn't be a tall order to ask for. I agree. Yeah.
Kind of just like on the topic of like consent in relationships and stuff, and kind of going back to the whole like sexual violence and all that thing, I think there's a lot of extra weight put into sexual violence in relationships, which is like a whole nother topic, but it's like getting consent and like having those communications like while you're in a relationship. I feel like that also goes, it's kind of looked over, like the whole consent thing and like all of that stuff. Like if we wanted to get into like reporting it and like talking to somebody about it, I feel like that's like there's a whole nother level to that puts on so many extra challenges.
Yes.
And even just like talking about like manipulation and stuff in relationships, and I feel like that's so overlooked sometimes.
Hugely.
Yeah.
And invalidated.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be in that position, I think that just puts like an extra barrier for people to get help, and an extra barrier for people to speak up about it and isn't taken seriously.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because even as frequently or recently, as maybe, I'm pulling this number a bit out of my head, but like maybe 10 or 15 years ago, it was, maybe longer ago than that. Don't quote me on that exact number, but in recent history, since I've been alive, it was, you couldn't report a partner of sexual assault. So if it was your wife or your boyfriend or your husband or your whatever, then sexual assault couldn't happen anymore, which is, like you just said, crap. Obviously it can. Consent doesn't go away just because you're in relationship with somebody. And we don't talk about that. And it in very recent history wasn't even illegal. So we're just getting to a point now where it's getting more normal to identify sexual assault within a relationship and that be taken seriously, just as seriously as if it were a stranger that did that to you. And the sad part, or I guess maybe now the happy part, that is being more recognized as a valid type of sexual assault. 94, I think the stat is, % of survivors are sexually assaulted by someone that they know. So it's often not a stranger. It's often someone that they either are friends with or are in relationship with. So it's hugely important that that is talked about and acknowledged, and that consent is still an important piece of the relationship puzzle, even when you're in a relationship. That never goes away.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's like, despite whether or not you're in a relationship or not, if it feels wrong, it probably is wrong.
Exactly.
And I feel like, you know, even people at this table too would recommend seeking help and to try figure out your way out of that unnecessary situation, because you shouldn't be putting yourself into something like that.
Right. And I would even, just to like reframe our language a little bit, because it comes so easily for us to say you shouldn't be putting yourself in that situation. And while that's not the wrong thing to say, that's where I'm talking about is it's so normalized for us to talk to ourselves like that.
I feel that it's just so many people, especially say in relationships too, they're scared, you know.
Yes.
And it's hard to get out of that. Like I put myself into a situation like that, you know, where it's hard to leave, like you're scared and all that. But you know,
did you put yourself in that situation, or did you get stuck in that situation?
I got stuck in that situation. There you go. Actually.
There you go.
But
you didn't put yourself there.
Yeah. It's like especially the more, I feel like the more you hear things, it's so bad, you know, what's going on now. And then knowing that like there's more people out there too that are just suffering and they're just stuck there and they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But for me, my best way of escaping was, I know it's not ideal for some people, but I came to my dad first.
Amazing.
Because I know that my dad, or even just like one of your parents or somebody, you know, there's gonna be somebody there who cares for you. Like, there's not gonna be one person, you know, there's at least somebody there.
Yeah.
And you know that since it's such a serious thing, you know, they'll try help, you know.
Yeah. And if you go to someone and the first person that you pick doesn't take it seriously, or doesn't support you, next, find the next important safe person to you. There's also a scenario where, like, what does consent mean? So, like, if we look at just the definition of, like you said, yes, and that equals consent, well, there are situations where, like you said, someone could be manipulated or coerced or forced or scared or guilted into it, or they felt obligated, so they said yes. And in the actual definition of consent, all of those types of things invalidate that yes. Because you didn't give a free and willing yes. You didn't give an enthusiastic yes, you know? You said yes because for whatever other reason, it wasn't safe to say no. So in our world, and of course, regardless of what you did or didn't say, the way that a survivor feels afterward is the way that they feel about that. And don't get me wrong, some of those situations can certainly be messy. I mean, for someone who, especially like, let's say when we're drinking, not even talk, I'll get into the manipulation bit in a minute, but when substances are involved, right? Then we're not really paying attention to those subtle, if they said yes, did they mean to say yes? Or are they only saying yes because they think they have to now? Or because I said something like, a good girlfriend would do this, right? Well, then, of course, if she wants to be a good girlfriend, she's probably going to say yes. And does that mean that it was freely given consent? No. Like, those things are manipulative, right? And from a legal perspective, where it gets messy is, again, in Canada, our law says that we need affirmative, clear consent in order for consent to be valid. So what we should be looking for is that someone was like, absolutely, let's do this. I'm in total agreement, free willing. I'm not inebriated. Like, I'm not drunk. I'm not high. And it's my own free will. But instead, what they look for is all the ways that they didn't say no. You know what I mean? And that's a very different question than how did you clearly say yes, is how did you not say no? And that's where it can get very messy, because we're invalidating survivors' experiences who never said the word no, let alone the ones who did say the word no, and then something bad did still happen. But there are scenarios where sexual violence still occurred even though I said the word yes. And that's why consent is a holistic thing. It's not just that one singular word. And so that's what a lot of our education programs talk about for youth, as well as what does consent look like in the real world. It's not just I signed my name on a piece of paper. What are all the ways that consent can be invalid, or that we can coerce consent, in which case it's non-consent. And those impacts are, for survivors, are still incredibly real.
So how does that look like in like legal ways? Like if someone was to report it and it was more of like the manipulating thing, or like sort of consent, like what does that look like?
I mean, I'm not a legal professional. I'm just going to disclaimer that.
Yes.
Again, I don't work for the police. I'm not a judge. I'm not a lawyer. In my lived experience, having worked in this field for my entire career and having worked very closely in a legal system, reports like that never proceed to charges, ever. They're so hard. There's no evidence. They're so hard to prosecute. They're so hard to even nail down details of.
Right.
Which means that there's nothing to move forward on. The legal structure system is structured to make 100% sure that they are only ever putting criminals behind bars. And if they cannot be 100% sure that they're doing that, then they won't do that. And I understand that that is their threshold for conviction, is just very incredibly high.
Yeah.
And I don't envy that job. I don't want that job. Yeah. That sounds like a hard job to me. And that it just means that the nature of prosecuting and investigating sexual assaults is incredibly challenging, and means that our rates of conviction are very, very low. So scenarios like that probably would never proceed.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a get help section on your site for people who've been recently abused or are trying to heal from past experiences. How does that section support survivors on their journey?
Yeah, so that section of our website is what we hope survivors, if they were looking for like immediate support, would find first. So that's why it's like the first thing on our website. So it has a bunch of information about if you have been recently sexually assaulted, what to do. If you're interested in getting a forensic exam, what to do. If you're interested in reporting, what that might look like. If you're interested in counseling, what that could look like. If you're a historical survivor, so meaning that it happened in childhood, but you're an adult now, what does that kind of mean? Is your experience still valid? Spoiler alert, of course it is. Are you still eligible to come to the center? Yes, you are. So the section is supposed to sort of be like kind of a quick directory of the things that we find survivors want very quick answers for right away. So typically things that have a time limit. So I'll talk about forensic kits a little bit here quickly. They were previously called rape kits, but they've changed the terminology to be a little less aggressive. So it's a medical procedure where they swab the body of the survivor for DNA evidence after a sexual assault. There is a time frame for it. You have to do it within 72 hours of the assault. And it's best if you don't change, shower, wash at all, brush your teeth, drink or eat anything before you go, which is very rare. Most people do one of those 6 things before they decide to go to a hospital after they've had a traumatic experience. And also a kind of big misconception about the kits is that if you go get a kit done, that means your sexual assault report is extra strong. Maybe.
Like it's a secured thing.
Right. And that's not the case. All the forensic kit can prove is whether there was contact or not between 2 people. Like if there's DNA found in my body of someone else and I acknowledge and I named that other person, then they can confirm or deny whether that's the person's DNA on me. A forensic kit can never prove consent or not. Right? Because consent isn't in our DNA. It's verbal, it's communicative, it's nonverbal. So the kit isn't necessarily like a guarantee of charges or a conviction. And that can be a misconception for a lot of survivors.
Yeah. I feel like even just hearing about that too, it would come off as if it would help you, way more.
And it can help. Sorry, I don't want to like say that it can't help, but it's not a guarantee.
But yeah, there's still that possibility where it might actually not benefit you in that exact situation. And
Yep.
just hearing about it now though, and knowing that what it's there for, I feel like it helps a bit, because I know that there's so many people, who don't exactly know what it's used for. And
Yes.
like you said, they might think that it's mostly for the help benefit, I guess, maybe winning the trial.
And during the forensic kit, they also will test for STIs, which is very important, and test for, or will give you like the Plan B pill if there's a risk that you might be pregnant and you don't want to be. So those are also helpful pieces. But more importantly than that, and what it says on this section of our website, this Get Help section, is that you can go to any hospital or mediclinic after a sexual assault and just receive like a once over and get the STI testing and still the Plan B without doing a whole forensic kit. You don't have to get the DNA swabs. The forensic kit is a medical thing, but it also triggers the legal side. So once you get the forensic kit, a legal report is then required for that to move forward. And if a survivor doesn't ever want to report, then there's no point in doing the forensic kit.
Yeah.
From a legal perspective. From a legal perspective. So there is a point sometimes for survivors to just feel like they did everything they could do. I've heard survivors talk about that, taken every step that they feel like they could, or collected all the evidence. The other thing is that I think they keep the forensic kits for only a handful of years. And if they're not investigated in that window, then the DNA is just destroyed after that. So there is a time frame with the forensic kits, but not a time frame for reporting in general.
What would be the first best step for a survivor?
I think the best first step is to tell someone that you know loves and cares about you. I don't care if that's your partner or a friend or your mom, or even if it's not someone that you have a personal connection with, but it's like a counselor that you already are connected with. If it's your school counselor, someone that you know cares genuinely about your well-being, that is the first person you need to go tell. Because I think maybe, Summer, you said this earlier, that shame sort of thrives in this type of crime. And it really thrives in silence and secrecy. And the best first thing to do is not keep it to yourself. And that's always the most tempting thing to do when something like this happens, because of the shame, because of the guilt that we often feel, because of the fears that we might have. And all of those things are going to weigh a survivor down and eat you alive from the inside out. And the best thing you can do is not have that secret sit on you. It's just going to fester and feel worse and yuckier. And like we sort of said before, if you're concerned that you don't have a safe, loving, caring person that you can go to, then there are third-party places, maybe people that you haven't met yet at your local sexual assault center, maybe your school counselor, like I said, maybe another local organization that you frequent that have people in them that will help you. It can feel very isolating to try and find those people, but it's important that you do it. I don't care if you ever report. I don't care if you ever go down the medical stream. Well, I would hope that you would make sure that your body is physically safe and well. Like if you need to go get medically checked out, I would recommend that. That's important. But the forensic kit, I wouldn't necessarily recommend. I wouldn't even necessarily recommend therapy. But what's most important is not keeping it to yourself. Long time ago. I mean, sexual assault is not a new crime, right?
Yeah.
This has been happening since the dawn of human beings. People have decided to weaponize a vulnerable act. And in order to have consensual, healthy, happy sexual relationships, you have to have a layer of vulnerability. And some people decide to take advantage of that. And yeah, how did it start? I mean, why are humans violent ever at all? We could go way back to I don't know what the origins of violence are. Someone probably more educated than me with a PhD could figure that out. But yeah, it's not a new crime. It's something that's existed for eons and eons. And it is happening to way too many people, way too many women and girls. Men are also affected, primarily when they're young. way too many queer folks, to us LGBTQ folks, way too many folks living with a disability. Like all of these kinds of layers of vulnerability add to someone's chances of being a survivor. And it's happening too much. And so how do we stop it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Education, talking about it.
I guess a way we can try, you know, reach out and spread awareness, I guess, is just to talk about it and
Just to talk
about, you know, what can help. Like,
yes,
like what we've been talking about, which was, you know, understanding consent and, you know, even having that comprehension, you know, for one another, as long as you understand what somebody is saying. Like,
yeah,
you know, that should be it. Like, you should.
and some compassion.
Yeah, and some compassion too.
Yeah.
But it's just such a hard thing.
I think your generation's better at it than mine.
Yeah.
I would
You
hope
think
so. I do. I think you're better at it. I think your media is better.
Mm-hmm.
Like the books that I read now, the TV shows that I watch now. I mean, I'm watching looking for positive examples of consent now. Like I never used to look for that when I was 15,
Yeah.
16. Like I didn't notice. It was all just kind of like subtle.
Yeah.
Now I'm like zoned in.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many good examples of healthy consent.
Yeah.
In our pop culture that I'm proud of, that I'm happy, and that's new.
I kind of like how even though we could have had more resources back then, I'm also pretty glad that in today's generation we got more support than than most people did back then.
Yes.
And I feel like, you know, with all that support and different areas to look at, you know, I feel like somebody should maybe take that time and to read through it, you know, because you never know, that could very much help you, and maybe that is your little last missing piece.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe you should check out her website, Morgan's website.
SSAIC.ca.
Yeah. If someone's listening, wants to learn more or needs help, where can they connect with you again?
So our website is SSAIC.ca.
Yeah.
We also have Instagram and TikTok. We try to be cool,
Yeah.
but we are millennials, so go easy on us. You can also just come find our center. So we are, I mean, you can Google Maps us. Saying an address is silly, but we're downtown Saskatoon. We're attached to the YWCA, right by Kinsman Park. So we're just right by the river. It's actually a really pretty place. Our center is not scary. The name on the door is scary. I get that. The inside of our center is not scary. We have plants and we often have animals in our center. I don't know why. It just seems to be someone's dog is always there. There's kids. Like it's a warm, like there's colors on the wall. It's welcoming.
Yeah.
There's furniture. It's cozy. There's tea. There's coffee. We try to make it as cozy as possible for a trauma center. And we know that that's scary.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, anyone can either, if they want to learn more about the center, website's the best place. If they are a survivor and want to engage at the center, giving us a call, emailing us, or walking in is the three best ways to find us.
To wrap things up, if you want to leave our listeners with one important message, what would it be? I
would say that as a listener, particularly if you're a survivor, that I believe you. This is just words coming from my mouth. I believe you. I support you. There are people that will believe you and support you. Your experiences are valid and that it wasn't your fault what happened to you, and that healing is possible. I know it may feel like that's not the case, but I promise you it is, and that there are people out there that are doing everything that they can in their power to try to make this world a safer place where fewer people become survivors. And if you're an ally listening to this, we hope you'll join us in that cause. You can learn more about how to be a better ally on our website as well, or watch any of our educational videos that we have online, or attend a presentation that we have in the community. There are so many ways that each of us can play a role. In fact, we will never make it better unless each of us play a role. And I am just excited about the growth that we can make as a culture and as a group togetherness moving forward.
Well, I just want to say thank you for coming out and spending your day here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks for tuning in to Deep Dive Discussions. If you enjoyed this conversation, share it with a friend and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Until next time, keep diving deeper into the stories that matter.